Welcome back to Hometown TCG, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John.
And I'm Josh. And we are back with our Budget Deck Tech series. And we heard you guys in the comments section. We are talking Arc Heroes, and today we're hitting Kano. But before we do,
we got a big announcement.
Yeah, we do.
We got our live stream event coming to you June 22nd at 7 p.m. Central Time. That's right, we're going to be giving away unlimited art boxes on stream as we're chatting with all of you. It's going to be a great night. We hope to see you there.
We hope to see you there. Stop by, ask us any questions you have. Let's talk some fab. Let's hang out. But today, let's talk Kano. And I got to tell you, I love playing this deck because it is stressful.
You do. This was your first deck that you're like, man, I love this. Like, this is my hero.
It does. And guys, it was my hero, and Classic Construction is not the place for you, so this Blitz deck is right up your alley.
That's right. All right, so looking at this deck, we are, on TCG Player, it's going to cost you $67.19.
Not bad for a full deck. We'll take that all day.
Not bad for a full deck. And I think it may go down with more Arc being released.
Exactly. We've talked about that in the past. As Arc comes out, we expect these prices to go down, so that's only going to be a bonus to these. Maybe you can fit some more stuff into it under your budget, too.
So let's get into it. What do you think Kano does well?
So Kano has that threat of being able to win the game at any moment, right? Because he has the ability to play on his turn and on your opponent's turn. He presents that threat to win the game at any moment, and he makes it so decks that want to use all of the resources to do something big, it can really bite him in the butt.
Ew, that's right. Yeah, if someone's trying to use their resources, or if someone doesn't have a lot of blues, you just have a huge advantage against them.
Exactly.
So, you know, with this ability to kill your opponent at any time, he does have some weaknesses, though. So, first thing is he doesn't defend great because his armor doesn't... He doesn't have armor on his equipment.
He doesn't have any armor on his equipment, and he starts with 5 less health. So you're already playing behind the 8 ball. So for playing on your opponent's turn, you got to pay a price. That price is 5 health and no defense on your equipment.
That's right. The other thing is that it takes a lot of experience to play this deck well. So you're going to have to practice a lot to understand the lines of play, understand what your chances are going off the top, and things like that.
Exactly. And with that, it's also very difficult to overcome a lot of null runes. So with the experience comes your opponent's experience, and they're going to start playing more null rune, and that's tough for you to push past.
I would also say that it's hard to make friends playing this deck. It's if you're playing someone new, make sure that you are explaining everything to them.
Oh, no.
Because yeah, you do know what I'm going to say?
Yes.
Yeah, make sure that you explain everything to them because it's kind of confusing. If you're a new player, you're like, what's going on? Like, how are you playing on my turn? So take things out, explain it well. You don't want to make someone quit because you opted 7 and hit them with a massive attack.
For 21 damage. Yes, so to recap, we've rambled a little bit. The armor's weak. It's hard to overcome a lot of null rune. And it's hard to make friends when you play Kano. But we want to play Kano, and we want to play him well, and that's going to require a couple things. And the Opta mechanic is going to be huge in this deck because your power is going to close out games.
That's right. You have to know what's on the top of your deck so you can hit your reds. The biggest thing for that is the Talismanic Lens. It looks kind of weak. It's just once per game Op 2, but this is the card that's going to let you finish the game. Save it for the end and kill your opponent by finding the right card.
Exactly. Like we talked about, wait for them to use those resources. Use that to kind of peek and cheat your way through the top couple cards of your deck and get that finishing blow. The other card in the deck that's going to allow you to do that is Cindering Foresight as well.
Oh, yeah. So we're playing that in red and blue, and that card, just to be able to opt there at any time, is going to be huge. Plus, the extra damage is always nice on it, too.
Exactly. It does not hurt, but you mentioned damage, and we're starting with 15 life. Our opponents start with 20. That means this game is all about the damage we can put out and the damage we can mitigate and not take.
So your big attack is going to be Forked Lightning that's going to push through damage. So 2 and 2, and then each time you buff it, it buffs each instance of it.
Yes.
So when we're looking at putting in a Stir the Aetherwinds, you're buffing 3 on each, and that's going to be 10 damage right there.
So you can make these Forked Lightnings absolutely huge. You can make them extremely difficult to block, especially for a deck that's not running Null Rune and not running blues. You're going to need to pull off a big Forked Lightning to win these games.
Another big card is going to be Blazing Aether.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Blazing Aether has closed out a lot of games. Now, Blazing Aether is going to be dependent on the rest of the turn. However, if you're able to pull off a Blazing Aether after a big turn, you can literally double down on your damage.
You need to save it for a turn where your opponent doesn't have a lot of pitch, or they're opting not to defend your attacks, and you push through a little bit, and then you can just you can do your Mage Master Boots, or if you can opt into it off the top of your deck and finish them off with the Blazing Aether.
Exactly. Those are going to be huge lines of play in this deck, but there's also a couple unsung heroes in this deck. One of the biggest unsung heroes is your Energy Potion. Blocking out, laying down Energy Potion for a future turn when you have some of this damage ready to go, that can be clutch.
Yeah, it's huge to be able to do that. It's also huge that you can play it off the top of your deck if you hit it.
Exactly. You can Kano power into it.
And if you hit it first turn of the game, you are set. Like, you're in a great position.
Pretty. First turn Energy Potion, and every other deck seems a little weak. And Kano, you're putting pitch in the bank, guys. You'll love it. The last unsung hero I want to talk about is the Tome of Aetherwind. That's this one, right? Okay, Tome of Aetherwind. Because Tome of Aetherwind off the top to draw the 2 additional cards can allow you a little versatility. You can continue trying to attack your opponent on that turn, or you just picked up 2 more cards to block with.
That's right. It can even be you pick up 2 more cards, maybe you block with 1 and you can use the other one to go into your arsenal. It just, that versatility is great, and we're not even talking about the adding damage part of it. Because there are times, you don't often do it, but you can choose the plus 1 damage on it. You can choose that twice, because that would buff your Forked Lightning by 4.
That would make a Forked Lightning huge. So as you see, guys, we've talked about several lines of play just in the couple minutes talking about key cards, and that's where the skill in playing Kano, that's where the meat and potatoes is in this deck. It's figuring out the lines of play. I always say to you every time I play this deck that it's like I'm the meme with all the math equations flying around me, and I'm trying to solve the equation as I'm playing my opponent and keep myself alive and not die. I get sweaty when I play this deck. My hands shake, but I pick up a lot of wins now that I understand it.
It's like solving the puzzle.
Exactly.
So you do have to get that experience in with it. But a few tips we can offer you. One is going to be that you don't want to go for it on your opponent's turn until the end of the game. It's a lot of times just block and do your little damage to chip through and get him to a lethal range, and when you're ready to go for it, then play on your opponent's turn to kill them.
Very true. You will see that's a theme with a lot of decks, not that we just give you, but in Fab in general, right? You want to mitigate your trades. When you're trading with your opponent, you don't want to be taking consistent damage and only putting out a little bit, or you don't want to make yourself vulnerable when you don't know what they have their big turn. You're not ready for that. So we want to keep our health as high as we can, starting with 5 less. We're already behind the 8 ball. So we want to keep our health as high as we can, and we don't want to risk it until we know we can close that game out. And guys, when you're playing on your opponent's turn, that's less resources you have to block with. That's less resource you have to protect that life total.
And I think one exception to this rule is if your opponent has a very high null rune value, a 4 or a 5, and they're pitching a ton to block you out. They may not have a ton of cards when it comes to their turn, and that's a time when you may want to play on the top, because that may be the only time you can actually push damage through.
Exactly, and you're going to need some of that opt to make sure, because the last thing you want to do is this risky situation. You've got a lot of null rune, you're trying to push this damage through, and you miss off the top with Kano. You need that opt.
The opt is just so huge, and we talked about it earlier, but let's reiterate it right now, is that you need the opt on your last turn of the game. So saving your Talismanic Lens for the last turn is ideal. If you don't have that, making sure you have a Centering Foresight sitting in your arsenal ready to go is how you're going to win the game.
100%. You have to hold on to some, if not both those resources, at least one of them if you're going to close these things out. Otherwise, guys, you're lucking into it off the top, and that's not a consistent way to get wins. But as we talked about, you are behind the 8 ball, so you got to push through something. So you do want to chip away still. You want to make good use of your Forked Lightnings. You want to make good use of your Voltic Bolts, things like that.
So push through the damage, trade the maybe 2 cards and 2 cards until you get to the end. Have maybe something good in your arsenal or Talismanic Lens and finish them off. That's how you're going to win.
Yes, that is definitely how you're going to win, and you have to know those numbers. You got to have a number in mind. It's a lot like Chain, right? When you have, or Levia, you have a number of cards in your discard pile when you decide to turn the engine on. As Kano, you have to have a number in mind. You've played your deck 3, 4, 5, 6 times now. You know what life total you're comfortable going for it and getting the win. Don't be going for it at 17 life unless you have no other choice. Keep chipping away, get that life total low.
Yeah, I think if they're at like 5 life or less, it's just in the bag.
It's in it feels in the bag. It feels like a win.
Yeah, so if they're like 10 life or above though, that's gonna be hard. I've seen it done. I know you did it to win an event once.
That was tough. It wasn't fun, but it was tough.
So you can do that. So the less than 10, you're okay. Less than 5, you just got it.
I think you got it in the bag. And guys, we have to close this video with talking about practice. This is not going to be a deck that you build and play and are successful with off the bat. You are going to need practice. You're going to need to understand your lines. You're going to need to understand what your opponent's trying to do to you so you know when you should be going for it or not. But I think it's one of the more rewarding decks you can play in this game.
It is. It's so much fun, and it really is great. I don't think we see as much of it because people find it difficult, but it is a super powerful deck in the format. I love playing it, and I think if we were to upgrade it more, your next big upgrade would be the Legendary. It would be the Storm Striders. Do you agree?
I completely agree. That ability to not have to luck into it off the top, to be able to pay a resource and play on your opponent's turn, you can almost guarantee you're closing out those games, right? In our build, when you're under a budget, sometimes you can miss. No matter how much opt you got, guys, you can miss sooner or later. But with that, it feels like you can. It feels like you have more control to set everything up. And if you got them, you can slot them right into this deck with no other changes, and you're in a good spot.
That's right. So let us know what you think about the deck, what your experience with it is, and if you have any questions, and we'll be sure to get back to you. But until then, my name is John.
And my name is Josh, and we'll see you in the live stream.